Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out of this world conversations with extraordinary people. And today I have on Joey George, and we're going to bring him on in just a moment. But first, a couple of announcements. If you have not had the opportunity to grab my free 20-minute meditative journey to meet your galactic family and guides, make sure you grab that on my website, mysticmanta.com or drlisajthompson.com. Also, if you're coming here to Hawaii, specifically to the Big Island, north of Kona, come on one of my Big Island UFO tours where you will see the night sky in a whole new way using the advanced Generation 3 military night vision goggles. And that website is bigislandufotours.com. And then for those of you who really want a deep dive experience into the galactic realm, really connecting and enhancing your clair abilities for deeper connection with your galactics, then come to my galactic retreat here on the Big Island, being held October 2nd to the 6th. Okay, without further ado, bringing on Joey. Hello, Joey.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. So it's so good to have you here. Let me introduce you to the audience because you have quite the bio here. Joey George, also known as the UFO Magnet, is a lifelong experiencer. His encounters with the unexplained cover the full spectrum of the paranormal, from UFOs to spirits and cryptids. Joey has the ability to attract UFOs or UAPs at will, using only the power of his mind. He has logged thousands of hours of independent field research and study over the course of his commitment to the field of ufology. As a result of his dedication, he has compiled one of, if not the broadest array, of simply mind-bending photo and video captures pertaining to the paranormal. The UFO Magnet has captivated the world with his clips of real-life fairies, shape-shifting spacecraft, spirit orbs, and even talking geese. He's managed to gain the attention of several agencies, including MUFON, within which he has worked closely with state directors and field investigators to further examine certain aspects of UAP phenomena, including the integration of different species of birds and the roles they seem to play concerning this phenomena. He is also the reporting witness of a MUFON case, which was ultimately closed as an unknown UAV. This was his very first officially reported UFO sighting, involving a low-flying triangular craft, of which he caught a startling photo as it flew eerily overhead near Tulsa, Oklahoma. Resulting from this feverish amount of activity, the researcher has, unsurprisingly, found himself in the crosshairs of some less friendly organizations, seemingly similar in nature to the infamous Men in Black, the mysterious group known for silencing the voices of witnesses by any means necessary. Okay, well, so we're going to stop with your bio there. And that's, quite an interesting history that you have. And I would love for you to share with the audience kind of how you grew up. Like, how did you get into all of this?
Well, I was born in Wheeling, West Virginia in 1980. A student moved here to Oklahoma not long after that. I think by the time I was one, I think we moved here. I was here for a little while, and then we lived in San Antonio until I was in about 5th grade, and moved back up here, and I've been here ever since. I've got 4 sisters altogether, 2 on my dad's side and 2 on my mom's that are twins. I grew up with the twins. The other 2 I didn't meet till way later, when I was about 15 or 16. That's a long story we won't get into right now, but we basically experienced a lot of like spirit type things living in San Antonio. Not long after my uncle had died, started noticing a lot of activity around the house, and like mirrors would come off the wall, hang in midair, and then fall to the ground and smash, and towels would start shaking on the towel rack when I was taking a bath, and a lot of weird things.
Yeah.
My mom was obviously kind of like me. I think that's where I may have got it from, but we both have always kind of experienced a lot of strange things.
Okay. Well, so besides seeing these objects actually move, were you seeing the spirits themselves or just the objects? skeptics?
I never did until way later on, within the last 7-8 years or so. That's a funny story because I actually used to get so terrified of these things when I was a kid that I made this mental kind of pact with them that, it's like I know you're going to be here and you're going to continue to try and get my attention or whatever it may be that they're doing, but I just don't let me see you, because I didn't know if I could handle that at the time, and they never did. It seemed like they complied.
Okay.
All the activity went on, but I never actually saw anything. It wasn't until way later on in life that I actually did see like manifestations of some of these spirits or entities.
Mm-hmm. And were you allowing yourself to see them? Like, were you opening your mind and wanting to see them?
Definitely.
Okay.
As I progressed, mentally and spiritually, I grew to learn not to fear those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
Okay. Well, so
once
tell
the
me.
fear was gone, then it was a little easier to cope with.
Yeah. So tell me what your first memory of seeing a UFO was like and what happened with that.
Oh, I believe I was about 4. The first one I remember, either 4 or 5. I can remember riding in the back seat of the car with my mom going down the highway in San Antonio somewhere, and a bright white ball appeared in the sky just out of nowhere. I was looking at the clouds, I remember, and just right in between two of them, this giant white ball, glowing ball appeared. And it kind of zigzagged around a little bit, and then it was gone. And I knew that wasn't normal, obviously. That wasn't an airplane, but that always stuck in my mind, being so young, seeing something that I was so unfamiliar with.
Well, and so then did that just continue regularly throughout your childhood or did it come back more as an adult?
Both. I mean, it's definitely amped up in the last, I don't know, I'd say 7 years, 8 years or so.
Okay. Was there something that happened 7 or 8 years ago that opened this up more for you?
Absolutely. I was actually, the girl that I was dating at the time, she used to say some pretty crazy things a lot of times. And I won't get into all of them, but she had some pretty wild ideas. And at first, I thought maybe she was a little bit nuts, but then she would say things like, the star out here is following me around and stuff when she would come in the house. And I was like, okay, whatever, and then I started experiencing these things for myself. And then the ball started rolling really quick after that. But basically, like the entire middle part of my life, uh, seemed like I was like kind of brainwashed or something, maybe, to where I didn't pay attention to those kind of things. I didn't think about them. I definitely didn't go searching for them. And it took her to really open me back up to it and accept it, and for it to even come back at all, any of the memories of it. So I don't know how that happens exactly, how you totally forget something like that, but it happened, and she opened me back up to it, and I'm grateful for that because I've taken it way further this time.
Yeah. Well, so I guess tell us about some of the most profound experiences that you've had over the last 7 or 8 years with these different craft.
I have a pretty good top 3 list. Um, the number 3 would have to be. I'll go with the top 2. Number 2 on my list is the classic 3-star triangle that people always talk about seeing. Me and that same girl I was dating were walking across the street to go to IHOP one morning when she got off work, and it had been like drizzly and overcast for about a week straight. Hadn't seen the sun in over a week, and as soon as I set foot up on the sidewalk when we crossed the street, I got that feeling that I usually get that told me to look up. So I looked straight up above me, and there's 3 stars underneath the clouds, which is pretty low underneath an overcast sky. And they sat there for a minute, and then they all started to move at the same time and in like a zigzag pattern. And they did about 5 zigzags, and they were throwing out these spark-looking things behind it. It didn't really look like fire sparks. I describe them more like digital sparks or something
Hmm.
that were coming off of this thing behind it. So it does 5 zigzags, and then after the 5th one, spins around 3 times and shot straight up through the clouds, left a hole, and was gone.
Wow. Okay, and was she witnessing this with you?
That's another strange part of the whole thing with her. She was always there for like my most profound sightings, and I'd be screaming at the top of my lungs trying to get her to look and whatever. I turned around a couple times when I'm watching this thing, yelling at her like, "Oh my God, I'm freaking out." One of the most brilliant things I've ever seen. I turned around and looked, and she was still walking and didn't even look, which baffles me. I don't know. That seemed to
Yeah.
happen over again. I don't know. I still can't figure out what was going on with that, but
Well, from my experiences,
we witnessed a lot of the things. But
yeah, I think some of them are meant to come just for specific people in that time.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, which leads us to number one on my list was this gigantic, probably I would say about 3 football fields tall. This being that started out as just a white dot of light out on the horizon. One morning when I'd been sitting at the window all night, it was when I first got reawoken to the whole thing, and I was so like mesmerized by these things again. I would sit there and watch them all night and film them out my upstairs window, and the sun had come up after a night of sitting there all night, and so it's broad daylight about 9:30 in the morning or so,
Mhm.
and I had a pretty good view from up there, and up on the horizon, as far away as I could see, there was one of those little shining white dots appeared, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and this thing took like probably 5 to 10 minutes as it approached me, and the closer it got, the more shape it took, and as it got closer, I could see that the whole sky behind it was blacked out as far as you could see to the east and west,
Wow.
and I didn't really know how to take that. I kind of thought that maybe I didn't know if this thing was God coming towards me or what when it was happening.
Did
It
you
was
ever
it
figure
was
out
so
what it was?
no, definitely not. It was just one of those things, man. I don't know if I'll ever figure out what it was, but um, it just kept getting closer and more massive and taking more shape, and it got to where I could tell it was like within a couple miles of my apartment, and
Hmm.
when it got that close, I could tell that the black that was following this thing, which looked like it's churning, like swirling black wall. Like I said, as far east and west as you could see, I could tell that it was blackbirds following this thing.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So,
And this thing's taking more and more shape. And like it's hard to describe what it looked like because I've never seen anything even close to what this thing looked like. But I would say that it looked like it was kind of a cross between a bird maybe and like a jellyfish
hmm.
and maybe SpongeBob or something. It was crazy looking for sure. But
Well, once it was coming closer to you, what did it end up doing? Did it just sit there or dissipate?
no, it was coming towards me, and the whole time I'm screaming at her. She was in the bathroom right next door to the room I was in,
Mhm.
and I'm yelling at her, telling her to come and look at this thing because it's like hovering right over the main highway out in front of the apartment. And this thing, like I said, 3 football fields tall or so, and probably 2 wide. And this sea of blackbirds following it was like, I mean, it was huge. I'm like, this is massive, you know. I'm thinking how many people are pulled over on the side of the highway watching this thing, going, holy crap, you know. And
Mhm.
come to find out, not a damn one of them were. uh,
Okay.
she finally made it in there, and this thing had made a turn towards the west real slowly, and a sea of birds were right behind it, and it was moving really slow. you could tell it came from a, really far away, but it got there, relatively quick. But I'll never forget the way it's like tentacle type limb things, whatever you want to call them, kind of swayed as it turned in front of me and started fading off to the west right as she walked in. And I'm, freaking out, screaming, pointing at it, and she didn't see anything. And it was, clearly visible in my eyes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but she didn't see anything.
Okay, and no one else, and you're saying like no one else reported it,
No,
or yeah,
no, it was nobody that I
yeah.
know of anyway. The next day, though, I had 3 or 4 friends over, and I'm recreating the story. I got them up there in the room, we're looking out that same window, and I'm pointing over off in the distance, where I first saw the light. And when I turned and looked where I was pointing, I saw it again. It was there again. And I said, it kind of looked like, and then I saw it and I said, it looked exactly like that. And I started freaking out all over again. I was like, it's back. And so the whole process begins again. And this time I've got 4 witnesses.
And they could not see it, or they could?
No, they could see it.
Oh, they could. Okay. Okay. Well, and yeah. So
About,
then, did you end up reporting that to MUFON or anything like that, or?
no, I still never have. I'd never reported any of my sightings until 2019 was my
Okay.
first actual official report. Up
Okay.
until then, it was just, another thing I saw, basically.
Yeah.
It became pretty normal. Not that one was not normal by any means, but that was definitely number one on my list. And I don't know if anything will ever top that one.
Yeah, that's pretty extraordinary. So the second day that you saw it, were the birds still there behind it?
Now, see, it happened a little different the second time.
Okay.
It started off exactly the same, with the white light off in the distance in the exact same location, and it seemed like it came a little quicker this time. So as we're watching this white dot get bigger and bigger and closer, I'm telling them what the thing is going to look like here in a second from what I saw the day before. And like I said, something wasn't the same this time. I couldn't figure out what it was, but it seemed like it was getting closer to me a lot quicker this time. And then all of a sudden it was like there. It didn't grow into this massive being. It just stayed like a white blob kind of. And then I realized it's almost to me, and I started to brace myself for impact because I got the window open and it's coming straight at my face. And
Oh,
it
wow.
gets about 30, 40 feet from me. I can see that it's a white crane, a
Okay.
bird.
Okay.
And all of a sudden it's right there in my face, about to slam into me. I'm bracing for impact. And at the very last second, it turns up and goes up over the roof.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Because before we got on, you had sent me an article about another crane experience.
Right.
So so in your bio, you mentioned that there may be some kind of bird connection with UFO activity. So do you want to go into that a little more?
Yeah. I didn't really think about it until way later on. I don't know why, but I always thought I've had several encounters with this disappearing crane thing. Um, I've had 6 now,
Okay.
separate incidents, but the first one I thought until I remembered that whole deal was when Mindy Topfest from the Oklahoma MUFON chapter. She was a state director at the time. Uh, she was the one who investigated my first case of a triangular craft that I took a picture of.
Mm-hmm.
And after that first initial report, I started talking to her on Facebook Messenger, and like ever since we talked the first time, like the very next night, I was sending her new material that I just filmed that night, and that went on every single night there on after. And she was always like, "Did you report this? Did you report this?" Every time I would send her one, and I was like, "No, I might." Some of them I considered, but uh, about a month went by, and finally I had to say, if I reported everything I saw, I wouldn't have time to breathe, Mindy. And she goes, oh, I'm starting to see that. And so she decided she wanted to see it for herself. And so we tried to set up a sky watch. And then COVID happened. And so it got put off. We finally got together one spring, I believe it was 2021, I think. And her and 4 other investigators came out. And we had a few sightings all night. We stayed up on this hill, had a really good view, 360-degree view of the whole city. And we had a few sightings and stuff. There was a five planet alignment that night.
Mm.
And that was all pretty exciting stuff, you know. But then as we're going to load up, I leaned over to put my camera in its case, and I got that feeling it told me to look again. So I turned around and looked behind me, and there I saw this giant silhouette of this bird. It was massive, like 6-7 feet wide, with its wingspan. And I yelled out, "Look at that pterodactyl!" to everyone, you know, just being a smartass, and it got everyone's attention. We're watching this thing fly towards us, and it was a full moon that night, I believe, and so we could see details of the thing as it got closer. It flew totally silently. It flew within about 30 yards of us, right over our heads, and it was a sandhill crane, which it was a weird, you know, location for that a bird like that to be, really. And the timing of it was just a little off. But we watched this thing fly over us, and it got about 20, 30 yards away and just vanished right in front of us.
Wow. And so everyone saw that. It just disappeared.
Right. Yeah. All of us saw that. There was, I believe, 6 of us up there by the end of the night. All witnessed that. Yeah. And
Okay.
Mindy looked at me and said, "What the hell was that?" And I said, "Another day at the office." I
Okay.
really didn't have an answer for her. That's all I could think of at the time. It's just another
Yeah.
one of those. But
Well, do you?
I always considered that my first sighting or encounter with this thing. But then I started thinking back to that, you know, that day where I saw that giant being, you know, coming towards me, and then the next day when I was showing it to my buddies, and that had to have been, and that probably, if I really want to go into it, that probably might not have even been my first encounter. Maybe there was other times before that I just didn't put together
Mm-hmm.
or anything of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, with having, you said 6 separate incidences at least with the disappearing crane, do you have any like theories or ideas about like, is it a cloaked craft? Is it a cloaked being? Or,
I think I do think it is something. I think I've had a lot of separate encounters. Like I have this weird firefly thing going on that. Which is another thing I didn't really put together for a long time. But as I go back through my thousands of old videos of these strange things and crafts and stuff, I started noticing this lightning bug that would always show up in almost all of them, and it just seemed kind of like a nuisance at the time because it'd be flying around my face or my girlfriend's face, but you could hear someone talking about it in the background even if you couldn't see the thing. And uh, then I started to realize a few years later that like any time that I would be outside and I would start thinking about this lightning bug, one single lightning bug would appear and fly up to me and then, you know, fly off. And I realized that was like a normal thing, and I could do that like anytime I wanted. I never really saw it in the middle of winter, obviously, but and so I started telling some friends of mine about it, and a couple of them were pretty big skeptics of all of the, you know, things that I do and that I talk about,
yeah.
and really scientific, you know, minded. And even though they had seen several things with me, um, they just, you know, always wanted to find a logical explanation, which so do I. You know, every single time one of these things happens, you know, I do everything I can to find a logical explanation for it. But a
Yeah.
lot of times it just isn't one.
Well, so in terms
but,
of, oh, go ahead.
but I think that possibly this, I mean, and there's several other instances of different things, but I think that they all might be the same thing in a different form. what that is, I couldn't really tell you. I'm not going to pretend like I know, but something that's probably been with me for possibly since birth. I don't know, or even before.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if you feel like you've ever actually been on craft.
That's another interesting story. I don't have any memories of anything like that, which a lot of people don't, I would assume. I don't really dream about things like that,
Mm-hmm.
really to speak of. But MUFON actually tried to set me up with one of their hypnotists that they use here in Oklahoma. A guy by the name of the Dark Lord, they called him.
Okay. Interesting name.
Kind of scary sounding, But they used him on a lot of their cases to, with involving people like myself, and I guess he was real good at working with them and helped a lot of people out. And we figured that I fight every day to find out why this stuff happens to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I always wanted to do a regression,
Mm-hmm.
and they were gonna they were gonna pay for it and all that stuff just to help me out. And so anyway, Mindy went to call the guy up and make an appointment, set it all up for me, and she was informed that he had just suddenly died of a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
So, and that was like one of three things, totally separate things that happened just in that week that pertained to me trying to find out something about my history or my why these things are going on. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like every time I would try and dig into that, something would shut it off and break that link and keep it from even starting.
Interesting.
Much less finding out the answer. It wouldn't even allow it to even come close.
Yeah. Very interesting. That's some of the work that I do. I regress people to help them get their memories back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so it's just really interesting because I what I what I've witnessed is that depending on someone's training and spiritual understanding and background depends on what's really going to come out in terms of getting to the true like root thing of what is going on at a soul level contract. Because a lot of the people are maybe regressed to remember what happened but not understand it, why it's happening. And so then there's still might be fear around it. And so one of my missions in all the work that I do is really to change that fear-based narrative of the media, government, and Hollywood. And so from your perspective, having all these experiences and then also being the UFO magnet and calling them in at will, which I do that as well.
More and more people are finding out that they can do that. They have that ability.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and
I used to be a freak. Now everyone starts doing it.
right. Well, so it seems like you don't have any fear anymore. You like maybe in your childhood you had fear
There's
stuff.
still a pinch of it, that you got to have just dealing with the unknown. But I mean, for the most part, yeah, I've gotten over that. There was maybe one time where it scared the hell out of me. What happened? And when I'd watched what was pretending to be an airplane flying towards me, or fly by in the distance, I should say. And I walked around the back of my apartment building, and that thing was coming towards me, except it wasn't an airplane anymore. It wasn't in that form. It was just a big white ball, and it was right above the power lines and coming towards me. And I came around the corner because I had a weird feeling that, to go and look. And once again, that strange feeling, the intuition, whatever you want to call it, that I needed to go check that out. And so I walked around the back, and there it was, this huge glowing ball of white light. And I came around the corner with my camera and my flashlight on it, almost like a police officer, hunting someone down. And as soon as I aimed them at it, then it shapeshifted, transformed right in front of me back into an airplane. It was a very strange looking airplane.
Okay.
And I also didn't realize that it wasn't making any noise until it kicked on an airplane engine noise, which didn't sound right either.
Okay. So again, yeah, it sounds like another kind of like cloaking mechanism
Right.
or something going on. Yeah.
And that could possibly be the same thing as that crane, you know.
Hmm.
That thing scared the hell out of me for some reason. I went inside and I woke my girlfriend up, and I wasn't going to go back outside unless she went out there with me. That's how much that thing got to me. And I don't know why. I've never had that feeling with any other time, any other experience.
Interesting.
Something about that one that really got to me.
Okay. Well, would you just quickly share your experience with the kind of like Men in Black kind of thing?
Okay. I wouldn't necessarily call them Men in Black. It's a little different than that, but I'll have. It's more of a vehicle thing
Okay.
where um, I've never actually had someone come up to me face to face and say, "Stop doing what you're doing."
Hmm.
You know, I wait for that to happen constantly. I have had videos and different things disappear off of my hard drives and my phones and everywhere, you know, SD cards even. Um, but a lot of times I'll have these vehicles in the middle of the night if I'm outside with my telescope or taking pictures or whatever it might be. It could be 2:30, 3 in the morning, and like for instance, the place I'm at right now, there's hardly any traffic, you know, during that time. Um, but I can go out at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I've had up to 13 cars in a row drive by with no tag whatsoever, totally blacked out windows, and just with totally odd, generally odd behavior. You know, they're not just driving by; they're doing crazy stunts and shit sometimes. But
Okay.
there's no way that there's going to be 13 cars in a row with no tag whatsoever on them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of strange things like that.
Okay.
I've also had the same for a while, for a couple of years straight. I had a couple of the same cars. I would see them everywhere I went. One would drive by in front of my house and then come back from a different direction where there's no way that it possibly could have got around that way, and especially in that amount of time.
Interesting.
Crazy,
Okay.
crazy things.
Very interesting. So, I mean, with that kind of stuff, do you have fear of it, or are you just like, okay, no, I'm gonna be fine?
See, I was always kind of on the fence about that because I don't really know if they're on my side or not. I kind of like to think that they are, and I've had a couple times where uh, something like that along those lines actually saved me from getting pulled over on the highway. There was one day about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I was about to get pulled over driving towards downtown Tulsa, and I hadn't done anything wrong. I was going the speed limit, and my tag was legal and everything. And this sheriff turns on his lights and gets behind me, and right about that time, this motorcycle comes flying by, like going 200 miles an hour. And so the cop changes lanes to go after him, and he's long gone before he even finished changing lanes. But it gave me time to turn off onto the other highway and be gone. And that happened 3 times that day.
Wow.
Three
Okay.
separate, three separate instances where the exact same thing happened. Different motorcycle every time, but
Hmm. Very, very interesting.
so
Well,
I don't know if that's one of those kind of same kind of things as those cars, but uh,
okay.
they were definitely helping me out that day. So I like to believe that they're on
Yeah.
my side.
Yeah.
I've
Well, that's good. Well, so
always had something that kind of watched over me, you know, my whole life.
yeah, sounds like it.
I'm thankful for this.
So, in our last little bit of time here, I would love for you to share your cryptid experiences.
Okay. Um, Hello. Yeah. Yeah. We're in the middle of. Sorry about that. Uh, I've had a couple of those experiences where I guess you would label them cryptids. I don't really know exactly what to call them, but things that just weren't completely right. um, I had one instance where I was outside with my telescope just as the sun was going down. I was getting some shots of the moon. And I lived right by the high school in Sand Springs, so there was always, foot traffic and stuff. And the track was right behind the house, and so there would be people out there walking and jogging. But this particular night, there was this younger girl. I have a 23-year-old daughter, 25-year-old daughter now, but at the time, she was 23, and the girl jogging down the street towards me down the hill looked exactly like my daughter. And and my daughter lives about 45 minutes away in Tahlequah. And if she was happened to come into town, I would have known ahead of time, more than likely. And I hadn't received a call from her. We hadn't talked about her coming out or anything. And she definitely wouldn't be out going for a jog, I wouldn't think. She had just had my first granddaughter at the time too. So, but anyway, this girl's coming towards me, and I'm freaking out because she looks just like my daughter. And at the same time, I'm trying not to stare because I don't want her to think I'm some weirdo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird enough. I'm outside at night with my camera taking pictures of stuff. It usually takes a while for my neighbors to get used to that kind of thing. But then once they realize what I'm doing, I start showing them the videos and pictures I'm getting, and they get kind of scared and are glad that I'm out there watching those things for them. But anyway, so I'm trying not to stare this girl down, but it's freaking me out. The way she looks just like my kid. And so she makes one pass by, and then a second, 15 minutes later, she comes running back by from the other direction, and ended up making a third pass. And on the third pass, she acted way differently than the first two. She would jog a little ways and then stop, turn towards me, and just stare at me for about 20 seconds. So I'm thinking, she must think I'm like trying to take pictures of her or something. Or I didn't know what was going on really. But it's just a really long, awkward stare. And she did that about every 20 feet or so, all the way back up the hill, which turned out to be about probably 10 different times. She just stopped, and she could be 100 yards away. She would stop, turn around, face right at me, and stare at me for 20 seconds or so, and then turn around and start jogging again. And I'm like, wow, this is really weird. And she finally gets up to the very top of the hill, and she's pretty far off in the distance. I can still make out her features and everything, but she's just about to cross over the hill where she wouldn't be in my field of vision anymore. And when she made that last turn towards me, her eyes were lit up this yellow glowing color, and it was like she had a light coming from inside of her skull or something, and just shining towards me. And then she stared at me for 20 seconds or so, took off, and I never saw her again.
Okay. Well, that eye thing. I mean, yeah. When you saw that, when her eyes did that, and this light was coming out of her, like what was going on with you? Like, were you like, oh my God?
I went the hell inside. That's what I did. I didn't know what to think, really. I'd never seen anything like that. I couldn't tell that she actually, I do remember looking down at myself to make sure she didn't burn any holes in my chest or anything.
Well,
I didn't have any damage that I could tell. But yeah, I went straight in the house and told my roommates about it. And one of them actually witnessed it. He was outside with me, and he was working on his truck or something, and he wasn't actually staring at her, when she turned around and did that. But I called him over there as it was happening, and he got there just in time to catch the very tail end of it. And, we both went inside not long after that, and we were telling the rest of the people in there what just happened. Eerie thing.
That's very interesting. So, I mean,
house on that same street, I had probably altogether 3 different weird encounters with people just that were just passing by, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There was another night, it was within that same week, I believe. I saw this, I thought it was like a high school kid, you know, or even a middle school kid. It was coming down from the direction of the high school, which is the same direction that the girl started out where I first noticed her. And but this is way later at night, and I can't recall exactly what time it was, but it was at least 11:30 to midnight or so. And this, what I thought was a kid walking down the street towards my driveway, he had this weird walk that you know, to him, almost like a, I don't know, it was kind of like a limp kind of drag, like a like a, he would turn his hip, like he had something wrong, like a hip problem, you know,
Okay.
maybe, and like kind of drag that leg a little bit, the right leg.
Mm-hmm.
And he also had something, I don't, to me, the first thing I thought when I saw it as he got closer and I could kind of see some details, I saw that he wasn't a kid for one thing, he was an older guy. And something really stuck out, you know, to me around his stomach area or abdomen area. It was almost like he had like an encyclopedia or a laptop under his shirt, like stuck down the front of his pants, maybe.
Okay.
Like it hide it, but there's this protruding square coming out from about here, you know, down about that wide, about about the same width as his, you know, his abdomen. And I was like, what the hell's going on with this guy? What is he doing? What is that thing? And then on top of all that, he had, I don't know how to describe what he had on his head. It was almost like a backwards motorcycle helmet, like a metallic silver colored motorcycle helmet. Not the whole helmet, just the visor part that, you know, flips up and down.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like he had those, like, I don't know, like over the top of his head. And it was just strange looking dude. But
Okay.
uh, that guy kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say scared me, but he put off some weird vibes that weren't real good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that guy just walked by once. You know, he didn't come back by 3 times like the girl did. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to make of that either. I don't know if that was an actual, just someone with a disability, or if that was another one of those strange incidents where I'll never know what it was.
Right. Well, so it just to wrap up here, because we're running out of time, is there anything else that you would just love to share with the audience about any of this phenomena that you experience?
um, it's happening everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It amazes me when I come across people that have never seen a UFO or anything like that anymore, because everyone's starting to get videos of them and stuff, you know, and it seems like the activity is just growing every day for some reason.
Yeah.
And there's definitely something happening. Um, and I think everyone needs to pay attention to it, whether you want to believe in it or not. It's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Look around. If you've never seen any, if you've never seen any activity or a UFO, a spirit, anything like that, you probably know somebody that does, at least. Um, I actually started my website last year, the UFOMagnet.com, where you can get on there and book me to skywatch with, and to where I will pull these things from the sky for you to witness and take pictures of, for
Mm-hmm.
the skeptics or people who just haven't ever seen anything but would like to.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I do my UFO tours here on the Big Island as well, and so we're seeing them every time as well.
What's your business like out there? You get a lot of people doing that?
Yeah, it's actually it's we live in a great area where we're in the where I do the tours. We're in the desert part of the island, and it's dark sky because of the Mauna Kea Observatory, just right
Oh, you're
behind.
right about that, huh?
Yeah, and so basically, our skies are beautiful and clear most nights, and so locals and tourists alike come on the tours. And so, we don't use the telescopes. We use the Generation 3 military night vision goggles.
Right.
And I've taken the goggles to other parts of the country and the world, and it's really interesting because there are certain areas where there's way more going on in certain specific locations than other places. And it's, here on our island and Hawaii in general, it's said that the veil between dimensions is thinner. And I think that that's why we see all of these craft like all the time. They're definitely not satellites.
Right.
And yeah. And so anyway, the activity is pretty fantastic. And so I
How do you like those goggles?
love the goggles. And
Jimmy Church was supposed to actually, when they were first coming out with those, he got a hold of some, and he was supposed to come out to Vegas to the event we were holding that Joshua P. Warren produced, Cosmic Invocation, where he had me come out, and basically we had an event to Skywatch, and he put up all tickets for sale for $200 a piece, and had a Fox News crew out there filming it, Then my friend Darren Evans, who's known for the Zozo phenomenon, basically, he's written a book about it, been on Ghost Adventures several times. Actually, it all started in Oklahoma City, where you said you lived.
Okay.
Found an old Ouija board underneath the basement, or underneath the basement stairs, I guess, and then unlocked all kinds of strange things that started happening and kind of haunting him, terrorizing his family and stuff. But he and Joshua P. Warren had been on Ghost Adventures together a couple times, and he started telling him about, they both moved to Vegas around the same time too, and he started telling Josh, about all my sightings and stuff. They kind of kicking around the idea of, what if we held a big, event, a big Skywatch, and called them in, and it worked. So they ended up calling me when we did it. But Jimmy Church was supposed to be out there from Fade to Black, and he was supposed to be bringing some of those goggles he used when they had first come out, and it didn't end up being able to make it, but so I didn't get to check them out. But
okay,
you like them, huh?
I do, and
Blue, right?
Pardon?
Those are the blue spectrum or whatever, night vision, instead of the green.
These are green.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, it's the phosphorus light technology, not infrared, and that's why they need to be Gen 3 or greater. Yeah, so each goggle set is around $4,000. So.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so our guests get to use the goggles on the tour, and then we have a night vision video camera to.
Do they pass them around, or do you have several pairs of them?
I have several pairs. Yeah.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah. Well, so Joey, it has been a pleasure to have you on, and thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so your website, you said it was the UFOMagnet.com?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, beautiful.
I just gotta say that it's been a really weird time, because you've been frozen up on my screen the entire time since before I even came on. So it's been kind of weird talking to a still picture of you.
Well, and likewise, you've been frozen too.
I'm kind of not looking directly at you, though, a lot of times, or I'm looking down. It's because you're not even there as far as I can see.
So we'll see how the video comes out when it actually.
Kind of strange.
Hopefully that looks good.
The look on your face, it looks like you're just glaring at me the whole time. So.
Okay, well.
Glaring me.
No.
So, anyway,
okay. So again, thank you for being on. And for those of you listening or watching, hopefully the video was not too distracting. Mercury retrograde hit, so who knows if that's technology issues. But anyway,
if we have to anyway.
Yeah. I will see you next time on Connection to the Cosmos. Aloha.